Well, hey guys, thanks for joining us today. We do appreciate it. Thanks for checking out sgtreport.com for all the latest real news and information 24/7. We have a returning guest today, the outspoken and well-spoken Michael Noonan from Edge Trader Plus. Michael's on the line right now, and so is Rory. Michael, how are you?
Great. Great to be with you again, Sean.
Well, it's just terrific having you. The last time we had you on, we had a very gripping conversation, and we titled that one The Rothschild Formula. You're one of those guys who's not afraid to name names, and we sure do appreciate that. Before we get started today, and I do want to talk about your last article, Gold and Silver, They Are Money, but I want to say hi to Rory. Rory, how are you doing today?
I'm doing quite well, thank you.
You've got a new refrigerator being installed today, I hear? Literally, I hear
yes.
in the background.
As we speak, it's being brought online. So.
All right, brother. Well, if it gets too noisy, maybe mute your mic, because we want everybody to be able to hear Michael firsthand, because boy, is this guy willing to speak truth. Michael, I was reading your article from last week, just a refresher this morning, Gold and Silver Are Money, and it's just such a great article. I want to read a passage for people here down below. You wrote, "All the gold and silver owned by the United States government was stolen, taken by the elite-owned Federal Reserve Central Bank. The central bank controlled the government and the media. The public was fed the kind of news that never led on to what happened during those decades, and the public has since been dumbed down even further in all the other decades to date. In the 1940s, 50s, and 60s, one often heard the expression, quote, 'the dollar is as good as gold,' end quote. That was another Rothschild-inspired idea to implant in the minds of the people, and it worked. Another popular expression related to the gold stored in Fort Knox. No one ever talks about Fort Knox anymore, and hasn't for many decades. Why not? All the gold is gone, and the elites do not want to draw attention to what is not there." I just love that, because anybody who needs a refresher on what's gone on since the formation of the Federal Reserve in 1913, they ought to read this article, Gold and Silver, They Are Money. And the reason I wanted to bring that up, Michael, is because it seems in the mainstream media today, and even in the financial mainstream media, they want to continue to malign gold and silver to the point where people are really afraid to buy it.
This is true, and every in almost every, if not every article that I write, I always remind people to buy physical gold and physical silver and hold it personally. And it is the intent of the established elite to malign gold, as you say, because they do not want it to be in competition with their fiat currencies. Plain and simple. Everywhere outside the United States, gold is a recognized medium, and I think last time we spoke, I mentioned that there aren't too many people in this country who have even held an ounce of gold or touched any gold. Maybe even some silver, some real silver coins that used to circulate in this country.
You know, we see so much monetary warfare going on right now. We posted, and I referred to it as monetary World War III, the news of Russia-Iran oil barter deal. It appears the U.S. is starting to get very concerned about the almighty petrodollar. The U.S. says any such deal would trigger sanctions. U.S. has conveyed concerns to Iranian government through all channels. Zero Hedge notes that this demonstration of strength is instead rapidly turning into a terminal confirmation of weakness. It seems the Russians have really called our hand on this thing, and the whole world can see it.
Well, it's a natural response. Putin is being pushed by Obama. Obama is pimping himself out for the elites, as I expressed it in my last article. He's, I can't think of another country that's been more aggressive and itching for a war of some kind, and I think ultimately the world will be pushed into a war of some kind through the United States. That's really an effort to cover up what's really going on with their failed currencies and failed insolvent banks throughout the world, central banks throughout the world, the Western world. But it doesn't make sense for Obama to try to sanction something that has nothing to do with the United States, but the United States is interfering primarily in the Crimean situation. And now with the deal that Russia wants to make with Iran, and they are going to make a separate, even larger deal with China. I didn't mean to cut you off on that, but there are two different situations. I think Putin is going to China in May, I believe, to probably submit the deal. It's going to be a huge natural gas deal. I don't think Europe is ultimately going to back the United States anyway, because they have too much at stake. The United States has no skin in the game other than bluster and bluffing and threats. And Putin's response to threaten the petrodollar, as it were, is inevitable and a natural one, and there's no reason why Russia should not be entitled to trade on their own with other countries from their own resources and paying for it or having been paid in their own currency.
Doesn't it seem a little dangerous for Obama to be threatening Russia or China, those two in particular, since both of those countries are the largest holders of our debt at this point?
Yes, it is. I don't think they run much of a risk of China interfering too much or trying to dump treasury bonds and ruin the country financially, because China has a lot at stake, and they're not ready to declare themselves a financial superpower currency-wise. So they're still maintaining a low profile. But the threats and the blustering I think, are purposeful to ultimately lead to some kind of war. They tried it in Syria. They tried it in Libya. They're trying it now with Crimea. Interfering, trying to provoke something. So far, it's not worked because Putin has successfully challenged and called Obama's bluff. I don't think Obama has the courage to go up against China because they're too powerful.
Why do you think that they're pushing so hard for war? I mean, Obama, it seems like that he's just been beating the war drums for, what, a year now? I mean, ever since Syria?
Sure. War is very profitable, number one. Throughout the history of the Rothschild dynasty since it was established, that's where Rothschild really came into power, through war, because war is very expensive. Rothschild lends the money to countries to finance the war, and in return he demands gold and silver back, and he gets huge profits on the return of the dollars loaned. And they're guaranteed because the governments have the populace to guarantee their loans through taxation. That's why Rothschild decided that it's a lot more profitable to lend to governments, because they have the power of taxation to back their loans, and I don't have to, and they're much greater and more profitable.
Well, Michael, would this be a good time to bridge into your current article, Power of Elites More Important Than China's Gold? As you note in the article, Mayor Amschel Rothschild is famous for having said, quote, "Give me a control of a nation's money and I care not who makes the laws," end quote. You were just talking about the power of the Rothschilds. Let's talk a little bit about this article, because as we all know, China is hoarding gold hand over fist. But maybe it won't be enough to stem the tide of the power elites. Maybe it won't be enough to stop the power of the elites, these criminal international bankers who at this point still really have control over the West, over the UK, over Japan, over Saudi Arabia, over a great portion of the world.
Yes, my point in titling the article in that way was not so much that China, no matter how much gold they have, will not be able to compete against the Western sources, was more directed toward people are looking at the wrong information. They're looking at, well, how much gold has China been importing? What's the let's calculate the figures through the Shanghai Exchange, and look, they're absorbing everything that they can. Yet, despite the record amounts of gold importation and the West being virtually depleted or almost depleted of gold, the price of gold is not being affected. So my point is to stop looking at that information. It doesn't matter how many coins the public is buying. It doesn't matter how big the lines our public are to buy silver and gold coins. None of that is impacting the price of gold. If it's not impacting the price of gold, what is? And the point to me is, the point I was trying to make is, it's the elites that are in power that are suppressing the price of gold. It doesn't matter how much gold China buys, and they're in an accommodative phase right now, because they can buy gold very cheaply, and there's no reason why they should want the gold price higher, especially because with their own currency, the renminbi, they don't want it pegged to gold at this point, because it will increase the value of their currency too sharply and put them at a competitive disadvantage. So they enjoy right now the best of both worlds. Again, it was just to get people to adjust their focus and look at what I think are, and I may not be on target of it, but I think I'm in the right ballpark in discussing that it's a manipulation that's going on by the central bankers, and everything is controlled by the elites, as I keep referring to them.
Yeah, well, I posted something at SGT Report recently here, an image of Hillary Clinton high-fiving Christine Lagarde at the 5th Annual Women in the World Summit. The summit took place in New York, and it's a Tina Brown summit. And I just thought it was fascinating to watch Hillary Clinton, an arm of this imperial power, a representation of this bankster power, and Christine Lagarde, another puppet representation of this elite bankster power, here at this women's forum, high-fiving on stage. It just struck me as just almost blatant psychological warfare against the people, because so many of the quote-unquote feminists or the sheeple who don't know any better look at those women as women who represent the best interests of America. And it just couldn't be further from the truth. These are the women that represent the United States war power, the IMF specifically, the Bank of International Settlements, really all of the worst things that seem to be plaguing our nation. I mean, look what IMF is doing to Ukraine with this, what is it, a $16 billion quote-unquote bailout with some of the most austere measures against the Ukrainian people ever?
Well, that's Cyprus and Greece all over again. I don't know that they've even made the loans yet to Crimea. They've certainly come in and taken their gold, even though the central bankers say gold isn't worth anything. The first thing they did was strip Crimea of their gold, at 2:30 in the morning by a direct flight with men in black clothing. They also transferred $70 billion of cash from Crimea into the Swiss bank accounts. So this is how the elites work.
Yeah, they're thieves. I mean, they're literally thieves.
Absolutely. That's why I mentioned in the previous article that the United States went bankrupt because of the elites, and in the process they stole all the silver and all the gold. There were massive transfers of silver in the 1920s and 1930s being sent from the United States to other sources, central banks, some of it being stored in New York. And this is why I say the theft has been rampant and long-standing.
Well, let's go back to this article specifically. Gold and silver, they are money. And you write, quote, at some point in the future, and no one knows when, but eventually the unsustainable debt generated by the United States, the Bank of International Settlements, the IMF, and other central banks, all of which are insolvent, will collapse. The elites will fight the collapse to the bitter end, likely forcing war to cover their duplicity, and it will get real ugly, maybe even downright dangerous for daily living. Not to sound alarmist, one can hope for the best and be prepared for the worst. You know, we've talked about this for so long. I'm just buoyed by the fact that you wrote an article where you're reminding people that it's not just gold that's money, as the mainstream financial press will be willing to admit. They often will leave out silver entirely and tell us it's nothing more than a commodity.
Yes, anything that's media related is controlled. The entire media, whether it's financial or otherwise. I'm sorry, I missed your point. I started to talk over you. I apologize. And
No problem. I'm happy that you're including silver, because these days it seems people are really fearful that silver has lost its rooting and it's lost its tie to gold. I don't think that's true at all, but people are really nervous that maybe gold is what you need moving forward when this collapse hits, and that silver will never return to its real world value.
Well, silver is more of a hybrid money. Ironically, people are totally ignorant when it comes to knowing their own currency. The fiat dollar is not actually a dollar, even though it has the word dollar printed on it. And the Federal Reserve has admitted as such. It's a commercial debt instrument. It's not a note because there's no promise to pay. It's not backed by anything. And the irony that I spoke of is the only definition of a dollar was made in the Coinage Act of 1792. And that act has never been overturned. It still is on the books. And silver dollars is an improper use of the terms. They are dollars of silver. And in the Coinage Act of 1792, a dollar is defined as, I think it was 375 or 374.1 ounces of fine-grained silver. That is what a dollar is. A dollar is not a piece of paper. The Federal Reserve took over in 1913. There was your biggest financial coup and the biggest Ponzi scheme that's been in existence throughout the world. But silver is in fact backed, is a dollar. A dollar is silver. So it's ironic that people have lost sight of it, and it's because they just don't know their own history.
Right.
And didn't they take that from, wasn't that measurement and the phrasing of all that, wasn't that taken from the Spaniards and the pieces of eight? Or am I wrong on that?
Yes, they were related to, because pieces of eight are used to circulate in this country as well, and the United States just redefined it to their own terms. But yes, that the derivation of it did come from the pieces of eight.
Well, I'm fascinated by the fact, and people often forget this, that, a British pound sterling was a pound of silver. I mean, that's what it was.
Sterling silver.
Yeah, a pound. A pound of silver was 1 British pound. How far removed have we all become from real money? But my point was really, even in the camp of those of us who are awake and who have been acquiring physical precious metal, because we're aware of the paper Ponzi, we're aware of the paper fraud in the gold and silver markets, we're aware of the paper fraud at the Federal Reserve, we're aware of derivative paper fraud. Even those of us who are acquiring physical gold and silver, a lot of people who have a lot of silver are just very afraid that silver will continue to only be beat down by J.P. Morgan, Blythe Masters, and by those that collude, the international banks that collude against the real world, the real tangible, real world value of silver. People are starting to believe it's only worth $20.
Again, that can only last for so long, and you just have to rely upon the fact that appearances are deceiving, and all fiat does collapse, and when the collapse does occur, silver will seek its natural level. It's a hybrid metal. It's also used industrially and not just in commercially, so it's not just a monetized or a monetary metal as gold is considered, and that's where you get some of the differences. And if silver were to rise dramatically and go back to, let's say, 15 to 20 or even 30 to 1 in the ratio gold to silver, the price of silver would be prohibitive for commercial use, and that would create a problem for a lot of companies. So there's a couple of reasons why the price of silver is kept low, but it will once this Ponzi scheme collapses. It's a question.
I'm sorry, Michael. Wouldn't it make sense for a company, we'll use Apple, for example, wouldn't it make sense for Apple and companies like that are very heavy or very dependent upon silver to buy silver mines or to be invested in mining companies, if not owning them outright?
Absolutely. That presupposes a degree of intelligence on the part of those companies that they know the value of taking such action.
Sean, I'm gonna drop out because there's a lot going on over here, and I know you can't hear it, but there's a lot, and so.
All right, no problem.
I apologize, but it's
okay.
Bad timing.
Good to talk to you, Rory.
Same here, Michael. I'll talk to you soon, buddy.
See ya. So, Michael, in your article here, Power of Elites More Important Than China's Gold, you actually do address what I was just talking about, and we hear this so often. Even in the camp of those that are informed and those that we trust, the Eric Sprotts, the Peter Schiffs of the world, the people that are talking about what precious metals ought to be priced at, given all the paper fraud that's in the world. And you wrote, all this has been the heart of reporting by the PM crowd, the precious metals crowd, plus coverage by the most respected minds in gold and silver, all end up concluding that gold should be $10,000, the ounce of silver $150 to $250 an ounce, or even higher for both. What are the current prices for gold and silver? Gold is about 13% and silver about 10% of those projected prices. What is wrong with this picture? You say almost everyone is looking at the same information and maintaining the same expectations, and all are missing the less obvious but more relevant reasons why gold and silver struggle. Their story, while valid, is wrong. It is the power of the elites. And again, you go back to Rothschild. Give me control of a nation's money, and I care not who makes the rules. Play by our rules, or you will be destroyed, you write. And it just couldn't be more true. I mean, we know it's true. I know you're right. And the question is, how in the hell do we break the backs of these people? How do we break the back of this beast?
Yeah, you do it by extracting yourself from the beast itself. You stop refusing. You get out of equity jurisdiction. You get out of their jurisdiction. You stop using credit cards. Stop using anything that is issued by banks. Cut out all ties with banks. That's all equity jurisdiction. That's all federal jurisdiction. Stop using Federal Reserve notes. Barter. Use gold and silver. Stop using the tools of the elites. That's the only way to do it. But people are comfortable in their lifestyles. Oh my God, I can't stop using credit cards. How will I do this? How will I do that? Well, okay, you have a choice, and if you choose comfort, then don't complain about the discomfort that you're going to experience by participating with the devil, as it were.
Yeah. Well, the charts, I know you're a big chartist. As it pertains to gold and silver and platinum and maybe palladium, do the charts even help us? I mean, I don't think they help us because of all of the fraud that we've just talked about. How do the charts help us? You being a chartist, what's your opinion on charts, and what do the charts say?
To me, the validity of the charts is they tell you that there's nothing wrong in the city of Dodge. Everything is going according to elite plan. You don't see any panic. You see the price of gold and silver still at low values. And that's what the charts tell you. A lot of people say, well, listen, those are their charts. They're based on the Paper Comics Exchange and the LBMA, the London Metals Exchange, and they don't reflect reality. Well, I disagree. I think they do reflect the reality of the situation that's being manipulated and controlled by the elites. And once they begin to lose grip of that control, it'll show up in the charts. The smart money always shows their hand through price and volume, and that's what I do in reading charts. I'm not a typical technical analyst that uses the other types of things. I strictly read price and volume activity as it relates to the market itself. And I point out a couple of days ago in gold, they had a spike in volume. It was the highest volume since July or August of last year, and it was on a bar that was to the downside. And then on Friday's rally, you saw a very strong rally bar with a strong close on increased volume, and that single bar on Friday erased the down activity of the preceding the 1st of April and the 2 days prior in March. They erased that negative activity, which is a plus. So the charts will really tell you what's going on, and right now what's going on is the control is still within the hands of the elites. And until they lose that control, I think I can't see anything else other than the charts as the best guide. The charts tell you there's no disruptions yet to be concerned about.
Is there any blockbuster stuff that we haven't touched on? Is there anything that we haven't hit on that you'd like to?
I don't think there's anything blockbuster. The point I have a lot of respect for the people that I write about, and I don't name names purposely because I don't want to be pointing the finger at anyone. But when you get the people like the Sprots and those who are revered in the precious metals community, and they've all been saying, and you get somebody like Jim Rickards, who's this currency expert, and they're all saying, $10,000 gold, $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 gold. It's just they're all wrong. They're right in their reasoning, but they're wrong in their timing. And for me, timing is everything. They were calling for all these things in 2013. None of it happened. And I wrote several months ago, 2014 could be a repeat of 2013 based on what I see in the charts. So I don't have anything really blockbuster, but just everyone to me is looking at the focus is on the wrong material.
At what point are you predicting the absolute collapse and annihilation of the dollar? That's actually not anything anybody wants to see because it's going to devastate every working person in this country. If you're not already uber wealthy, you're going to be destroyed when that day comes. So again, I've said it before, I don't wish it on anybody. I don't wish it to happen. You yourself say it's going to happen. The others that you just mentioned, Sprott, Peter Schiff, those other guys, they say it's going to happen. It's just that nobody can predict when it's going to happen. Do you dare try to predict?
No, and that's why I keep pounding back to the charts and pounding that into pay attention to what the charts are saying. Even though a lot of people don't have, Jim Willey is one who has no respect for charts whatsoever, but Jim Willey has been dramatically wrong as well. Not to be critical of him, he gives a lot of good information. The point is, no matter how powerful the people are, no matter how informed they are, no matter how close they are to the market, they are wrong in timing. And the best timing factor are the charts. You asked me about what the charts say. That to me is that's your trigger. The charts will tell you when these things are going to take place, when they're going to happen. And right now, there's nothing alarming in the charts at all. It's a normal bottoming type of formation that I see developing in the markets.
In the precious metals markets.
In the precious, well, any market, but yes, specifically in the precious metals markets. And unless you get a V-bottom shock off the bottom that will skyrocket prices like it did in wheat and the grains a few years ago, bottoms take time to turn around because you've got to go through the accumulation phase and shake out, get rid of all the weak holders and tire people out and say, oh, this is not going to work, gold's not going to go anywhere, silver's not going to go anywhere, I'm losing my faith and confidence in them. That's what they want.
With that said, this is obviously not a call where you're saying, run out and get gold and silver now because it's going to go to the moon tomorrow. Got that. But what are you saying? Are you saying that stay the course, continue to diversify into tangible assets because at the end of the day, that's all you can count on?
Absolutely. You don't have to run out and buy it because it's going to the moon, but you should be running out and buying it for your own self-protection. Because you don't know, it could happen next month, it could happen 3 years from now. But when it does happen, it's like a form of insurance. It's like the saying, better a year early than a day late.
Right.
Because once this thing does get underway, people will be afraid to buy. You know, when you see price moves $200, $300, $500 a day, people say, "Well, I'll wait for a pullback." That's not going to happen. You should be jettisoning all the fiat currency. The only maintaining the value are gold and silver. Yes, they've been down from their highs, but they're up dramatically from their lows as well. That's the wrong way to look at it. I think the proper way to view precious metals is it's a preservation of wealth, and it's the best insurance that one can have.
Well, Michael, before we lose you here, can you just tell people about your service? You know, you've given us 40 minutes of your time. How can we help support what you're doing? Tell us about your service. Tell us about your website, will you?
It's just information driven. I put out information to help people, hopefully as a guide to taking the best action that they can. I explain and I make the distinction between buying and owning the physical silver versus participating in the futures market. And I've not been advocating the long side of the futures market for the last 2-3 years, simply because that's the chart structure and that's what the charts say. But and I bought silver at as high as I think $45, $46 an ounce, and I have no compunctions about holding it. I just bought some last week. I'm getting twice as much for my dollar as I did a fiat dollar as I did a year and a half ago, and that's fine with me. I just keep accumulating, and that's the only thing that people can do is keep accumulating. And when reality finally comes into play, they'll be prepared and ready.
Absolutely. Well, Michael, thanks so much for joining us. It was very nice of you to take almost an hour out of your busy day today. Guys, you can find Michael's work at edgetraderplus.com. His name is Michael Noonan, and he is a truth teller. Michael, thanks for joining us.
I appreciate it, John, and my work probably will get lost in the ample, great work that you people publish all the time, consistently.
Well, you're very kind. Again, Michael, thanks so much. Let's keep in touch.
Thank you, Sean. Talk to you again.
All right, take care.
Bye now.
All right, you guys have a great week, and thanks for checking out sgtreport.com for all the latest in real news 24/7. Have a great week.